we were discussing today, the poets who have held this office, if any of us, how much we managed to write, how much poetry while we were here in Washington. Well, I was here in 1949 and 50, and I'm first going to read, I think it's the one poem I wrote during that year. It's a rather foolish little poem, because at that time the office for the consultant was on the front of the building, a magnificent large office with a balcony, and I spent a great deal of my time looking out at the Capitol. It's called View of the Capitol from the Library of Congress. And it's late afternoon in the full summer, I think. Moving from left to left, the light is heavy on the dome and coarse. One small lunette turns it aside and blankly stares off to the side like a big white old wall-eyed horse. On the east steps, the Air Force band in uniforms of Air Force blue is playing hard and loud, but queer, the music doesn't quite come through. It comes in snatches, dim, then keen, then mute, and yet there is no breeze. The giant trees stand in between. I think the trees must intervene, catching the music in their leaves like gold dust, till each big leaf sags. Unceasingly, the little flags feed their limp stripes into the air, and the band's efforts vanish there. Great shades edge over, give the music room. The gathered brasses want to go boom, boom. I've decided to omit the next poem on my program here because I think it would make it too long. So next I'm going to read a fairly new poem. After I lived in Washington, I lived in Brazil for many years. And this is a poem about a town about 2/3 of the way down the Amazon, from where the Amazon is, properly speaking, the Amazon. And the name of the town is Santarém. Well, that's named after a Portuguese town, but I don't really know what it means. I should have really looked it up, but I don't know. Of course, I may be remembering it all wrong after how many years. That golden evening, I really wanted to go no farther. More than anything else, I wanted to stay a while in that conflux of two great rivers, Tapajós, Amazon, grandly, silently flowing east. Suddenly there had been houses, people, and lots of mongrel riverboats skittering back and forth under a sky of gorgeous, underlit clouds, with everything gilded, burnished along one side, and everything bright, cheerful, casual, or so it looked. I liked the place. I liked the idea of the place. Two rivers. Hadn't two rivers sprung from the Garden of Eden? No, that was four, and they diverged. Here, only two, and coming together. Even if one were tempted to literary interpretations such as life, death, right, wrong, male, female, such notions would have dissolved straight off in that watery, dazzling dialectic. In front of the church, the cathedral rather, there was a modest promenade and a belvedere about to fall into the river. Stubby palms, flamboyants like pans of embers, buildings 1 story high, stucco, blue or yellow, and one house faced with azulejos, buttercup yellow. The street was deep in dark gold river sand, damp from the ritual afternoon rain, and teams of zebus plodded, gentle, proud, and blue, with down-curved horns and hanging ears, pulling carts with solid wheels. The zebu's hoofs, the people's feet waded in golden sand, dampered by golden sand, so that almost the only sounds were creaks and shush, shush, shush. 2 rivers full of crazy shipping, people all apparently changing their minds, embarking, disembarking, rowing clumsy dories. After the Civil War, some Southern families came here. Here they could still own slaves. They left occasional blue eyes, English names, and oars. No other place, no one in all the Amazon's 4,000 miles does anything but paddle. A dozen or so young nuns, white-habited, waved gaily from an old stern wheeler getting up steam, already hung with hammocks. Off to their mission, days and days away, up God knows what lost tributary. Side-wheelers, countless wobbling dugouts. A cow stood up in one, quite calm, chewing her cud while being ferried, tipping, wobbling, somewhere to be married. A river schooner with raked masts and violet-colored sails, tacked in so close her bowsprit seemed to touch the church, the cathedral rather. A week or so before there had been a thunderstorm, and the cathedral had been struck by lightning. One tower had a widening zigzag crack all the way down. It was a miracle. The priest's house right next door had been struck too, and his brass bed, the only one in town, galvanized black. Gracias a Dios, he'd been in blame. In the blue pharmacy, the pharmacist had hung an empty wasp's nest from a shelf. Small, exquisite, clean, matte white, and hard as stucco. I admired it so much he gave it to me. Then my ship's whistle blew. I couldn't stay. Back on board, a fellow passenger, Mr. Swan, Dutch, the retiring head of Phillips Electric, really a very nice old man, who wanted to see the Amazon before he died, asked, "What's that ugly thing?" This is a short, rather short poem, Back North Again, and it's called 5 Flights Up. And it's looking into bare trees, obviously, in the autumn, or in the early morning. Still dark. The unknown bird sits on his usual branch. The little dog next door barks in his sleep, inquiringly, just once. Perhaps in his sleep, too, the bird inquires once or twice, quavering. Questions, if that is what they are, answered directly, simply, by day itself. Enormous morning, ponderous, meticulous, gray light streaking each bare branch, each single twig along one side, making another tree of glassy veins. The bird still sits there. Now he seems to yawn. The little black dog runs in his yard. His owner's voice arises, stern. "You ought to be ashamed." What has he done? He bounces cheerfully up and down. He rushes in circles in the fallen leaves. Obviously, he has no sense of shame. He and the bird know everything is answered, all taken care of. No need to ask again. Yesterday brought to today so lightly. A yesterday I find almost impossible to lift.